according to PMM, there are the following phases in a project lifecycle. We have the initiating phase, we have the planning phase, we have the implementing phase, and we have the closing phase. During each of these different phases, critical tasks take place. During the initiating phase, you start by assessing the policy context of your intervention to identify how you can design a project that is relevant for the achievement of those policy goals. Then you identify and analyze all stakeholders, all individuals or group of individuals that will be affected by your project. After you have designed the stakeholder engagement strategy, the time has come to analyze the problems and the needs that your project will try to address and formulate a possible response strategy. This response strategy will come in the form of impacts, expected outcomes, both immediate and intermediate, as well as outputs. Once you have designed a possible response strategy, you will be ready to assess the external environment of the project. This means assess the necessary assumptions for your results chain to be feasible. Once you have completed all these tasks that are mostly the analysis of the context, analysis of the policies, analysis of the stakeholders, analysis of problems and needs, and possible solutions, you complete all the critical tasks during the initiating phase. You are ready to move to the next stage. During the next stage, you will do the planning of your project. You will plan the activities, and once you have the activities, you can start the budgeting exercise. You are putting a price tag and a time span into your project. Don't forget that you can only start the budgeting exercise once you have defined all your activities, and don't forget that you define production as well as support activities. Why you should only start the budgeting after you have designed all your activities? Because budgeting according to PMM is activity type. So you budget activity per activity, both support and production activities. Once you completed the planning stage of your project, you know what outputs you want to deliver, what immediate and intermediate outcomes you want to generate, and you know also what are the impacts of your project. And you know, through the planning, you know how much time you need and how much money it will be necessary. You have a full proposal. At the end of the planning stage, you have then a full proposal ready to be submitted to sponsor. If your project is approved, then you move to the implementing stage. During the implementing stage, you are performing the activities, delivering the results, and you do the monitoring, focusing on the results. Monitoring should be focused on the immediate and intermediate outcomes that your project is already producing. During implementation, it is also critical to make sure that your project is visible enough and that you communicate. And again, communication should also be based on results. Implementation is over once you have delivered all the outputs, and you can start seeing already the immediate and the intermediate outcomes that will arise from the use of them. All outputs have been delivered, you are ready to close your project. During the closing phase, you will focus on securing all the organizational assets that have been produced by your project. Handbooks, teaching materials, communication pieces, reports, laws, everything that has knowledge inside that can be eventually used in the future as best practices or as lessons learned should be protected during the closing phase. During the closing phase, it's also important to make sure that you do the administrative and financial closure of all relevant obligations in your project. Close all procurements, close all contracts. Make sure that all payments have been done and that you've collected all the pieces that will be necessary eventually to invoice to your sponsor. And the closing phase is also the moment to produce the final report. The final report is your signature card. It's the legacy for future projects. It's your legacy for your colleagues. Focus on the lessons learned, not only about implementation, but also about the quality of the design of the project itself. And make sure that the final report is also compliant with the requirements of your sponsor.